Pauly, here we are with you and to talk about what finding purpose in retirement. And of course, I've watched you in your journey from all years ago when we were sitting out on the deck at the gallery, and you happened to be driving by, and you stopped by in the gallery, and you didn't know us, and we didn't know you,
Huh.
Yeah.
and you didn't know Bill Zahner.
Yep.
And I remember your story. It's a great story how you walked into that studio and you stood there in front of his beautiful paintings and you got emotional.
I did.
And so I think, and I'll ask your opinion on this. We were talking a moment ago about the hero's journey, and the first step in the hero's journey is the call to adventure. When we hear that call, and we think, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm supposed to do. But yet there's something else in us that says, but I can't do that. And so we get stuck. So tell me a little bit about that moment and how that moment, I think, maybe changed your life and led you to where you are now.
That actually, I'm glad you reminded me of that because I haven't thought about that in a long time. But that was actually a very profound moment. I remember walking back to the back of the gallery and looking at this beautiful painting of the hill country. And that's the reason I moved here. I wanted to be in the hill country, and I've always had this passion for painting. At that time, I had never done an oil painting. It was all watercolor, but I wanted to be an oil painter. And I saw this beautiful work and I saw the price tag on it. I said, I can't afford that, but I'll bet I can do that.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I thought if somebody could just show me how to get started, this is what I want to do. I want to produce something like this.
Huh.
And the call was all about doing a landscape, uh, finding the ability to do a landscape of that magnitude on canvas, and something I had never done before, but really, really wanted to do it because all my paintings were this big. They were all watercolor paintings, just little tiny paintings. I'd done a few larger ones, but um, I really wanted to learn how to do oil painting. And it just so happened that the artist was there, Bill Zahner, and I asked Bill if he would teach me how to paint. And he said no. He said, I don't teach anymore, but if you want to come down to my studio and watch me paint, you can. He said, Sunday is my day to entertain people. Bring wine. So I did. And I was very fortunate in having not only the ability to watch him paint, but the ability to become friends with this person who not only taught me how to paint, but taught me about life,
Yes.
about passion.
Yes.
And that passion soon became the reason for my purpose. And I realized I've got to do this. This is what I want to do. So, I spent the next 10 years developing myself as an artist and learning my craft, learning how to paint bigger. Because at that time, I was still doing little bitty paintings like this. And Bill told me, hey, man, paint bigger. You know, don't quit doing these little bitty paintings, paint bigger. And he stretched me, he challenged me. And, but the desire was there, the passion was there. And as I continued down that road of passions, I learned soon that there was a purpose to this. I didn't know what it was yet, but I knew there was a purpose for me being able to do what I did. And I just continued to do it until I found the purpose.
So when you talk about purpose, what I hear you saying is you had the feeling that this is what I'm meant to do, right? But yet you weren't doing that. You were still working in a job. Was there some kind of an inner conflict there where you were working in a job that didn't closely align with your purpose, but there was this thing out there that was still calling you that you really needed to do? Was that going on in your head during that time?
That was a tremendous struggle because I really wanted to be a painter. Didn't know why yet. It took me a long time to understand why, but I really wanted to be a painter. And I thought, in the very beginning, I thought it's just, well, I just want to create these nice paintings, and maybe I'll sell one. And I started selling, and that was nice that somebody recognized that. Um, hey, this guy's got a little bit of talent, and he does nice paintings, and I'd like to buy one. That was nice, but um, I was in a job that paid me very well, and I didn't really enjoy the work. I enjoyed the money, but I didn't enjoy the work. And I went to work every day, thinking as soon as I get off, I'm going to go to my studio and paint. And one of the disciplines that Bill taught me was to paint every day. So my whole goal every morning when I got up was to finish work so that I could get home and get in the studio and paint.
Okay.
And I painted every day. I would paint. I would spend at least an hour every day in the studio. Most of the time, it was 2 to 3 hours until Linda came home. And but I developed this discipline of painting for the purpose of painting, just because I wanted to get better. And I wound up, consistently doing 50 to 60 paintings a year, um, with a full-time job, working 50 hours a week, and being gone for a whole week every month. I was out in Northern California doing my job, but I still painted. I even painted out there. I would get off at 3 o'clock there because, the time difference between California and the East Coast. And um, so I'd get off at 3 and I'd go find a place to paint because that was my passion. And again, my purpose at that time was just to get better. I finally left that job. I was I was riffed. I was shown the door. It's your time is up. You drew the short straw. And I remember driving off of the property, didn't even look in the rearview mirror. I was already ready to go when they gave me my termination papers, and they gave me a pretty good severance. I had my bags packed. I mean, my boss came to me, we had the conversation. He goes, "Do you need help packing your desk?" And I said, "It's already packed. I mean, I was expecting this." And I left the property, never looked back. And I thought, what I need to do is I need to leave for a little while. I want to figure out, what do I want to do with my life? And I came home. I told Linda, when she saw me, I went to her work. She said, "You got fired today, didn't you?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, "So what are you going to do?" And I said, "Well, I'd really like to go to Big Bend." And she said, "All right." Um, and I did. I took off to Big Bend, and I spent 5 days there just thinking and painting and thinking, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? And at that time, I had already been studying about possibly becoming a realtor, or becoming a home inspector, or a home appraiser. Didn't really know what direction I wanted, but there was this call to real estate. I just I felt a pull toward it because it was something I felt like I would be able to do to help people. And having had a bad experience in purchasing our first home here in Bernie, I thought I could do a lot better job than this realtor did for me. And, I want to make the home buying experience pleasant for somebody instead of having to go through what I went through. So purpose, that was my purpose then. It's like, okay, I want to be a realtor. I want to help people. I want to learn this business, but I still want to paint. And I thought, well, I'm going to be self-employed, so I can kind of do both. And that's fine. I still hadn't found my purpose for painting, but my passion was the it was still so strong, and it had already been ignited. I just didn't know what direction I wanted to go with it. So 4 years in the real estate business as a real estate agent, I COVID came, and the broker at the real estate company I was at uh, sat down and talked with me, and she was interviewing agents just to keep agents. And we had a really good conversation, and she asked me a question that's out of the blue. She said, if this was your company, um, what would you do different? And I thought about that for a minute, and I realized that, one of the things that's important to a real estate company is growth. And you can't have growth without bodies. You need to have more agents producing more business, so that goes to the bottom line. And I said, we don't have a recruiter in this company, and we really need one if you want this company to grow. And she said, can you do that? And I said, yeah, I can do that. And I said, in fact, what I'll do is I'll recruit 150 people the first year. And she looked at me and said, you can do that? And I said, I will do that. Yeah. And I did. And so I got a reputation as an excellent realtor and an excellent real estate recruiter. And, I was just really enjoying this real estate business. I loved it. It was such a change from financial services, which I had done for 34 years and hated every minute of it. Here I was in this wonderful company, and I was having a great time. I felt respected for the first time in my life. I was producing, I was helping my company's bottom line, and I felt really good about that. And that became my purpose for a little while, is coming in, doing the best job I could do. Every morning before I walked in, I would grab that door handle and I said, I'm Pauly Tamez. I'm the best real estate recruiter in San Antonio, and I'm here to serve my company. I would open the door and go in, and I would do my work. Before that, I would write my affirmations down. And every day, this was my routine. And I loved it. It was so fulfilling for me. It was, my company gave me back what I gave them. And then I got let go. But I got let go, and I felt good about it. I thought, I've got no worries. I've got an income from outside real estate, and I'm not hurting. I've got savings. I've got everything I need. I don't need to go back to work. But as life has it, and especially in the real estate business, it's a small world. Everybody knows what's going on, and it moves really fast. I left San Antonio, and by the time I got to Fair Oaks, which is still 10 minutes from Bernie, my phone rang and I answered the phone, and it was the manager of a real estate agency here in Bernie. And she said, "Hey, I heard you got let go." I said, 30 minutes ago? Yeah. She said, "Well, we're looking for a real estate recruiter. Would you consider applying for the job?" And, next thing I know, I was working for the largest, actually, the most prestigious luxury real estate company in San Antonio. So I went from here to here really quick. And I was at the top of my career. I mean, I could not have gone anywhere else. There would have been no promotion for me. I mean, I was at the top. And again, I loved what I was doing. It showed in my work. It showed every day people liked me. I drew people. One of my affirmations is I attract the right people into my life. And every day I would have the right people come in, and I recruited the right people, and I recruited great people, luxury agents, and I was doing a great job. But inside me, this passion, this fire of passion was still burning, that I wanted very much to just be a full-time artist. I just wanted to paint. So there was this conflict. I wanted to paint, but I wanted to do a good job for my company. I wanted to do a great job for my company, but I wanted to paint. And I was trying to balance the two. And there's a scripture in the Bible that says, a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. And I kept thinking about that. And then I finally, in January of 2023, I made the decision, I'm going to spend one more year doing this. And then I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to paint. I don't care what it takes. And you and I had conversations about this, Pat.
Hmm.
I didn't know how I was going to do it. But I knew I had a guaranteed income. I knew I had plenty of money saved, and I knew I wasn't gonna fail if I did this. I mean, there's always that question you hear: if you could do whatever you want and you knew you weren't going to fail, what would you do? Well, mine was, I want to be a full-time artist, and I knew I could do it, and I knew I wasn't going to fail. And I told my boss, I've got one more year. This is it. If you would like for me to, if you want to hire somebody else and you want me to train them, I'm happy to do that. If you want to let me go right now, that I understand, but I'm going to give you one more year. And I instead of them hiring somebody else, they used other people that were already in the business as managers, and I helped train those managers how to recruit, not just how to recruit, but how to do it with enthusiasm, because nobody likes to recruit. That nobody likes to get the phone call from that guy that says, "Hey, I want you to come over to my company." Um, but because I did it with such enthusiasm, uh, it was not a chore. And that's what painting is. I do it with enthusiasm. It's not a chore. It's my life. It's my passion. Still hadn't found my purpose, but I gave them one more year. So on December 15th of 2023, that was my last day there. Big party, bye Pauly. The doors closed behind me, and I was free. On December 16th, I woke up and I thought, I've got, my phone's not going to ring today. I've got no emails to read.
Yeah.
I don't have to read my emails. I don't have to answer any questions. I don't have any reports to do. I've got no meetings. I get to paint today. What am I going to paint? Well, for the longest time, I wanted to do abstract expressionism. That's what this painting behind me is. It's abstract expressionism. It's the process of getting your feelings and emotions out with color onto canvas. I had never done that before, and I never could do that before. It was just really difficult. From every abstract painting I started turned into a landscape. But I felt this freedom. And in that freedom, that morning, I got up, I went to my studio, I put a canvas up on the easel, I grabbed some paint, and I just started painting. This is what I feel. And at the time, Pat, you and I have been having conversations about this transitional period. I was reading a book by Bruce Feiler, Life is in the Transition.
Yes, that's right.
And, that he talks about how transition is not linear. It doesn't go from point A to point B. It goes from point A to G to X to Z to Y, and just, life throws you. And so here I am in front of this canvas doing this abstract work, which came out beautiful, and I wound up selling. My very first abstract piece was all about me in this. In fact, I called it the nonlinear transition. That was the name of the painting. And it just flowed out of me. And all of a sudden I realized I can do this, and that my purpose started to develop. And I started to think, how can I use this to help other people?
That's good.
Not just help myself, but how can I use this to help other people express themselves, get out? Sorry about that. Hey, 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 little dog.
Yeah, I know. I
By
got
the
two
way,
of them.
hey, hey, Grace. Um, so I know she's very passionate too.
That's good. I got two of them, so I know I deal with the same thing.
By the way, sorry about Gonzo. I read about that this week, and that
Oh,
really
thank
made
you.
me sad. I understand,
Yeah,
but I found this purpose. All of a sudden, it was like, oh, my purpose is to help people. My purpose is to bring beauty in the form of art to people, not only from what I create, but to help them create. And all of a sudden, opportunities started to open up for me to teach. And one of the first opportunities was at the senior center here in Bernie. Um, I got to do, I presented, I can do this class. I can teach, I want to teach landscape and oil painting. And the lady said, we don't have any supplies. We have a room, but we can't pay you. We don't have the money to buy supplies. I said, don't worry about it. I've got everything you need. I went and bought 12 easels. And I said, I can accommodate 12 people. We can make this happen. Started teaching these elder people to paint. And after every class, I felt so fulfilled. Passion, purpose, got married. And when those two
yes.
got married, all of a sudden, there's they had a baby, and the baby's name is Mission. So with my purpose and my passion together, I started on this mission to teach people and to help people express themselves through abstract work on canvas. And my first audience was a group of veterans, military veterans who, you know, veterans, we're all, I'm a disabled veteran, and we're all kind of a special group because every one of us got something going on, you know, in here, or, you know, missing a limb or something. And what I found was through the PTSD, through the depression, through the anxiety, through the addiction issues, painting brings healing.
Mm.
And finding somebody, people, it's easy to find with veterans because I think we all have PTSD of some kind. I mean, we were all taken from our home and thrown into boot camp. Our heads were shaved and we were all maggots. And
Yeah.
um, you know, we all had to listen and obey, and you know, exercise at 5 in the morning. It was just, you know, you're going to have some stress from that, and so we all have that in common. But unfortunately, there's 22 veterans a day that commit suicide. It's a very real thing with PTSD and anxiety and depression. It is uh, a lot of veterans don't know how to deal with that. They can't talk with somebody, but guess what? Everybody can get a paintbrush and put color on a canvas. And sometimes those colors are angry. They're red and black and, you know, dark colors. And sometimes they're very joyous and free. And I see that in every veteran group that I paint with. They produce these beautiful pieces and they look at it and they go, wow, I never did this before. This is really cool. So passion and purpose produce mission. And that mission is what drives me. The passion drives me. The purpose drives me. But that mission is like, it gives me focus.
So what I hear you saying here so eloquently, uh, it reminds me of a quotation by Nietzsche. Nietzsche said, "When you have a strong enough why, almost any how is possible." And it sounds like you discovered your why of painting. You know why you do this. Tell us more about that painting behind you. You said that painting behind you is about transition.
So the painting is called The Grand Journey. And the grand journey is, again, it's never a linear process. There's always obstacles in the way. There are things that we discover along the way. There's a lot of color in this painting. There's yellows that represent joy. There's purple that represent love and loyalty and royalty. Um, there's white, right in the middle. There's a white spot in the inside of a little square. It's kind of hard to see, but it's there. And that white is that purity that we all are going toward. We're all after that purity, that whether it's pure joy, uh, happiness, um, pure of heart, whatever it is, there's a purity that we're all seeking. And all these other colors, the green represents growth, the blue represents hope, the red represents love or passion. All these other colors are all around the painting. And if you'll notice, there's a lot of lines that intersect, but they don't go anywhere, and they kind of offset each other. And uh, that's life. We think we start walking straight, and all of a sudden the road kind of turns crooked, or it throws us off in another direction. That's the grand journey. Is it's difficult. But if we have a focus, we just keep going toward that focus.
Well, did this come out spontaneously, or did this plan, was this in your head and you put it on the canvas? How did this come about?
Um, every painting is spontaneous. A lot has to do with what I'm thinking about or feeling that day. I love color because color speaks to our heart. Color helps our synapses in our brain connect. And when our synapses in our brain connect, it helps our brain connect with our heart and it brings feeling and emotion. So I use color a lot and I just these are spontaneous paintings. I don't really think about what's going on, but but I may have something on my mind or I may have something I'm trying to process and these designs come out, these colors blend together. I remember doing one a couple of years ago that had um, it looked like a tapestry. It was just lines of color all working together, and I thought, look at all this chroma, this chromatic harmony. And I thought, man, if as I was doing the painting and it just kind of came out and I liked the way it looked and as I was doing these wavy lines and I was thinking all these colors are different but they're all working together and how wonderful would it be is as human beings even though we sometimes oppose each other. There's opposing colors. You put two opposing colors next to each other and they really complement each other. They make each other look good. So, like red is the opposite of green, but if you put them together, it creates this really cool harmony. And as I did this painting, I was thinking, I'm going to name this the chromatic harmony because that's what life should be about is creating harmony out of chaos and using the different gifts and ideas and thoughts that each one of us have to create this beautiful tapestry. And so this is things that go through my mind as I'm creating these abstract pieces.
Is this piece still there, or
uh,
did you sell it?
it's sold, yeah.
Oh,
It's sold. It's on my website. It's called the Chromatic Harmony. Um,
I think I know which one that is. I can kind of see the little wavy line square kind of
yeah,
things. Yeah, I have to look
yeah.
back at it.
Um, I don't remember who bought it, but it was somebody here in Bernie that bought it.
yeah. Wow. That's so profound, Paulie. I wish Bill was here to hear you talk like that. Eh,
I
He
wish he
would,
was here every single day. I would love for him to see what I'm doing today
yeah.
because it was a profound influence on my life. And I still channel him. Sometimes I get stuck in a painting and I think, what would Bill do? It was funny. I was having this conversation with David Caton, and we said the same thing. It's like he says that too. It's like almost every day I think, what would Bill do?
Mm.
We get stuck in this one place. So it just doesn't look right. What would Bill do? So yeah, I wish he was here too. I think about that old guy all the time.
Did you know Bill, Susan?
I knew of him, but I don't think that I ever met him. Yeah, I don't think that I did, but I did hear his name an awful lot at gallery things and art circles. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he was quite a character, but he could also talk poetically about his work, but frankly, not as poetically as Paulie. Paulie, he might be, uh, but he would bring profound meaning. I remember, and I have a video of this where he painted an old broken oak tree, and it was a beautiful painting, but the oak tree was damaged. And I made a comment. I said, Bill, I think you've done a self-portrait here
Mm.
because that was on about a few months before he died.
Wow.
Mhm.
And then he created this beautiful metaphor around this tree uh, about his legs that no longer worked. But he then pointed out the new growth in the tree, that he was still learning and still growing. And it was he did, he pointed out the flowers around the tree, and the metaphor was his friends and the people in his life that were important to him. It was really quite a beautiful comment, and I'm glad I got that on tape.
Yeah,
Oh.
I remember that painting. I can see it right now.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, so Bill had, his purpose. I believe he had a great purpose in my life. Um, he again he told me I'm not going to teach you anything, but he taught me so much just by observation, by conversation, by connection, um, just by him loving me and me loving him. I mean, I think he might have even learned some things from me. I don't know, but I learned a tremendous lot of things from him
yeah,
just by observing and by connecting with him. And that's what I want to do the same thing. I want to be able to connect with people and help them understand something beyond themselves. Give them a reason to have passion and a purpose for their lives. I think it's maybe Chip Conley, Bruce Feiler, one of the two that talks about purpose and how if we have purpose in our lives, we can extend our lives by several years.
7 years.
That's amazing to me.
Yes.
Um, I already plan to live to be 120. I want to be like I want to be like Bill. I want to die young at a very old age.
Uh-huh.
Um, but you know, I can't do that without purpose. Once
That's
I lose
true.
purpose, my life is over.
Well, I think this is one of the reasons why this topic is so important because, as you know, I'm 83 now, and you start thinking about different things as you get older. And I look around me and I see so many people who are much younger than me who are already shutting down. They they have no purpose beyond sitting in a rocking chair and yelling at the kids to get off the front yard or watching Jeopardy all day long on television, and uh, they die young. And what you're doing, and I think what I'm doing is what we can do to get that message out there. It does not have to be that way. You know, I've signed up to do the Camino next year. Are you familiar with the Camino?
Yes. Hmm.
I'm going to walk the Camino
Wow.
That's awesome.
from Oviedo, Spain to Santiago de Compostela, and I'm already making arrangements for it. And I walk 5.5 miles today as part of my training routine to get in shape for it. So, and I figure maybe at that time I'll be 84. If an 84-year-old guy can walk 200 miles, maybe you can get out of that rocking chair and do something purposeful in your life.
Right. Absolutely. Uh,
Yeah.
I had a conversation with David Caton a couple of weeks ago, and I asked him the same question. Has has all of your work, because he's been an artist all his life.
Yeah.
That's all he's ever done. And I said, David, has that created a purpose beyond you? And his answer was immediate. He said, yes, it goes beyond my own selfish desires. I'm quoting him. I get letters and calls from people. If I can do something from my own self that brings joy to someone else, wow, I've exceeded myself and I've learned something. Isn't
Wow.
that?
Wow. Yes.
Yeah. I'm very fortunate to have friends like him,
Yes, you are.
where we talk not only about art, but we talk about life. And David is a very profound person. He's a deep thinker. He's an extremely intelligent person, and I love our conversations because he always has something deep to say, and it adds so much to my life. Same with you, Pat. I love the fact that you and I don't just talk about sports or girls or cars. We talk about life and the meaning of life, and we talk about purpose, and we talk about things that matter. And it's rare to find people that we can connect with that way. And it's a shame because
Yeah.
all of us have something in us to share and to bring to someone else, but it so rarely comes out.
Yeah, it's unfortunate this lack of connection that we have in our culture right now and how we don't talk to each other. But I believe art does connect us in some ways. You can be in an art gallery and connect with a person you've never met before because you're both looking at the same painting. I remember years ago in Houston, I was in a gallery. Oh, come on, mind. The artist that paints those, just a blank red canvas.
Rothko?
Rothko, yes. So I was in looking, standing in front of a Rothko painting, big 6 foot tall canvas, just red. That's all, just red. And I said, well, hell, I could have done that. And the guy standing next to me looked at me and said, but you didn't.
Yeah.
And, that little comment, it kind of triggered stuff that I still think about, because I go through life every day now thinking, I could do that. I could do this. I could do that, but I'm not doing it. And this is the important message I think you helped us understand here is that you just did it. You picked up a paintbrush and you started, as Bill said, slapping paint on canvas
Yeah.
and got better and better and better. That's wonderful.
Well, I don't believe we can really have purpose without passion, or the purpose isn't going to develop without passion.
Yeah.
And as I mentioned, when your purpose and passion marry, they produce a mission. Mission is what keeps us focused, keeps us going. And um, we were talking this past Sunday. I meet my church is on Zoom. I meet with a group of about 7 or 8 people on Zoom every Sunday, and we were talking about the Apostle Paul in the book of Acts when he was departing from Ephesus and he was leaving the church at Ephesus, and they knew they were never going to see him again. But he gave this tremendous speech, and I pointed out, I it just jumped out at me. I know I've read this before, but this just stood out so profoundly to me. In verse 19, he talks about his service. He says, I served. In verse 20, he says, I have not hesitated. In 21, he says, I've declared. So talked about, he's declared this gospel that he went, from Asia and all parts preaching. And then he says, now I'm going. My aim in verse 24, my aim is to finish the race. And again in verse 26, he says, and I declare. And in verse 27, he says, I have not hesitated.
Mm.
And it hit me like somebody could have taken a board and just slapped me across the face. It was like, wow, that's passion, that's purpose, that's mission. He had it.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's what I want in my life. I want my life to be profound. If nothing else, if people don't talk about anything else about me after I die, I could care less if my paintings all burn. If somebody would just say, but he had passion, he had
Yep.
purpose, and he had a mission. That's all I want. That's 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 what I want my legacy to be.
That's great, Paulie. That's really profound. Let me
Pauly,
ask you.
that goes on your headstone if you have a burial place. He had
That's
passion,
right.
purpose, and mission. And that way, anyone who sees that, whether they knew you or not, will know that those things are true. That's beautiful.
It is.
Thanks.
So one last question as we kind of come to the end here, Paulie, and you said so many profound things. Let's take a hypothetical person, and there are many of them out there right now who are teetering on the edge of retirement. A lot of them are being retired. They don't have a choice. Our poor government workers are being laid off after 30 plus years of service and they're being laid off. But what is there any kind of advice or how would we counsel or coach a person who's in that it's what Chip Conley calls the chrysalis. The caterpillar just consumes its whole life, and then nature causes it to wrap itself up in this cocoon and literally dissolve itself in the cocoon. And in that cocoon or chrysalis, there's what are called imaginal cells that have all the DNA and everything they need to become a butterfly. And at one point, that caterpillar breaks out of the chrysalis and is now a butterfly and flies away. So that journey from caterpillar to butterfly is a metaphor for all of our lives. So there are a lot of people right now are wrapped up in that chrysalis, in that dark, gooey place where I'm not happy. I don't have that passion and purpose right now. I don't know what I want to do with the rest of my life. What do we say to them? How do we help
Well, it's funny you say the rest of my life because those words have some real deep meaning to me. One of the things I decided was I wanted to paint the rest of my life, but I didn't know what the rest of my life was going to look like. So now I'm painting it. I'm painting the rest of my life. So that has to do with passion. I believe that all of us are born with passion. We all have something that sets us on fire, something that gets us excited, something that really turns us on. Um, we need to find out what that is first.
them?
And when you figure out what it is, there is a purpose for that.
Yeah.
And when you know what your passion is, you need the second step is you figure out what's the purpose of this passion. Why do I have that? Why do I love sports so much? Why do I love music so much? Why do I love painting so much? Why do I love gardening so much? Find those two, marry them, and figure out what your mission is. It may be in teaching. It may be in giving back to your community. It may be in serving of some way, serving others. I think, we get we all like to be served, but we get so much more satisfaction when we serve others.
Hmm.
And, you know, one of the things that helped me a lot, uh, and I've been doing this for years, is I start my day with a few minutes of meditation. I'm lucky. I live in the hill country. I can go out on my back deck, no matter what the weather is. I have a covered porch also. I can sit out there with my cup of coffee and just look. And
Yeah.
in looking, I hear, and in hearing, I listen. And in listening, it goes into my spirit and I understand things. But it's a time of, I get away from the phone. I don't turn the TV on. I'm not reading anything. I just go out there and I just watch. And then every morning, I do this. I you can't see it. That Zoom thing. Okay, there we go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I have a journal, and in my journal, I write down the very first thing. I write the date, and I write I am grateful for, and then I write two things that I have gratitude for, and then I write down what I'm thinking, and it's short. It can be a paragraph. But the most important thing is my daily affirmation. And every day I write, I have favor, I have grace, I have mercy over every area of my life. I attract the right people into my life, and doors are always open for me. I've been writing this for years. And it goes on. There's a lot more that I write, but it's all positive confession, positive affirmation that goes into the reticular activation system, that part in the occipital lobe of my brain, that all it does is it gathers information. It doesn't process any of it. But you know what? When crisis comes, when opportunity comes, it activates, it draws out from that part of my brain that's making positive affirmations every single day. That's why doors are always open for me. That's why opportunity always presents itself to me, is I'm looking for it, and uh, I'm passionate about it. And because I have purpose, doors open up, and people will say, hey, they'll ask me what I do, and I talk to them about my passion. They go, oh man, I know a group of veterans that could really, you could really help. And boom, all of a sudden I'm in their classroom. So you have to know, we all have passion, figure out what it is, figure out what the purpose of that passion is, and create a mission from it. And that'll move anybody forward. Focus on it. That you got to have focus. If you don't have focus, it's like looking at a blurry picture. It's like looking at all that stuff behind you in the Zoom meeting. I don't know what's back there. But let me tell you about focus. This morning it was foggy, and I live in the hill country. I live in the hills, on top of a hill, and it was foggy. And I looked out, and you know what I saw? I know there's hills out there. I know what the shape of those hills are. I know every hill that's out there because I've seen them so many times. And even though the fog was obscuring it, I still know that they're there. And
Yeah.
that's the kind of focus you need to have. Pat, you know what's behind you. I don't, but you know. And even though that's all blurred out, you know exactly what's back there.
Yeah.
Um, I'm So one of the reasons I have a service connected disability is I've had this battle with depression all of my life, And so depression and PTSD are the reason that, I get my benefits. Um, Sometimes I have anxiety and panic attacks and in the middle of the night, and I wake up and I go outside. That's the first thing I'll do is I'll go outside. I look at the North Star because I can see that from my porch. So I know exactly where Polaris is. I know exactly where it is. Every single night it is there, even when it's cloudy, even when it's foggy, even when it's raining. I know that North Star is right there. And that's my guiding star. That's my center. That's my anchor. And that's what we got to have in our lives is some sort of anchor, some sort of, I know that's there. My focus is so on that that nothing is going to stand in the way. I know it's there in the dark. I know it's there in the light. I know it's there in the clouds. I know it's there when it's foggy. It's there. And that's what we got to create in our lives is focus.
Man, that's a beautiful answer to that question. And what you just said can help a whole lot of people. I'm going to make sure I share that recording. As a matter of fact, I've shared several times over the last few weeks something you said in an email when you said, I didn't retire, I refocused. I
Right.
thought, that's brilliant. I didn't retire, I refocused. And being a photographer all my life and love photography, I understand focus very well.
Yeah.
And I know how focus can make or break a photograph, and it can make or break a life, the
Right.
lack of focus. So that's brilliant. Pauly, thank you so much. We're right. And Susan, thank you for being here to support
But
Pauly. I really have. I've been watching your expression and your responsiveness, and you've you're a great Zoom participant. I wish everybody on my Zoom calls was as engaged as you are.
well, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and I've certainly learned some things and took some good notes, and I'm just really appreciative. So thank you both.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you, Pauly. Love you.
Thank you, Pat. Love you too.
We'll talk to you later.
All righty.
Okay,
Bye
bye.
Bye bye.
bye.